All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Today we have a great guest, a guest all the way from Pennsylvania. We have Herman with DadsHat Rye, and they're going to talk to us about their process, the way they're doing things, the old pre-prohibition style. That was hard for me to say. The pre-prohibition style of rye that they're making, and he's going to be able to say it a whole lot better than I am. So here's. Herman, how's it going, sir?
Very well, thanks. And thanks you so much for inviting me on.
No problem.
One of our favorite things to do is to share what we do with people who enjoy whiskey and hopefully enjoy what we do as well. So it's always fun. It's always a lot of
Absolutely.
fun.
Absolutely. And you were gracious enough to send over a couple of, I asked for samples and you sent over some full bottles, which I greatly appreciate. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to dip into a couple of these bottles and we're going to talk about all the different things that you guys have going on. And you can kind of walk me through these bottles, but we just really want to know more about your brand and backstory and stuff like that. So whenever you're ready, we can, I don't know if we want to start with a drink. I saw you had something, and thank you so much for this.
Yeah, this is my these new glasses we got. I'm really excited about it. I like them a lot. And I like the way they feel in the hand, and
yeah.
they're also just wide enough I could actually put my nose inside when I sip them. So
all right, so the one that I'm starting out with is I can't ever get the camera angle straight.
Oh, that's good. I see it.
Is the Pennsylvania Straight Rye Whiskey. So this one is aged a minimum of 4 years. So tell us a little bit about this one, and then we'll go all the way back to the beginning. I just want to get something in the glass.
That is we say minimum of 4 years. The average age of the barrels going into that straight whiskey is now about 5 years old.
Okay.
So they range anywhere from 4 to 6 years old. And we pick them by how we like them, and that's how we choose what goes in the blending tank. And one of the things that we do, and I'm not sure how unique it is, but it's something that we do to help us manage our situation as a small producer, is for our main products, we like consistency. We want you to pick up a bottle of our straight 95 rye and say, that smells like the last one I had, and that tastes like the last one I had.
Right.
There may be some variations along the road, but we wanted stylistically to be consistent.
Right.
So the way we manage that is that we have a 6,000 liter tank for our straight whiskey, and that tank never empties. Right now, it's almost 2/3 full.
Okay.
And we bottle from that tank, but we never empty that tank. So,
okay.
So we're always adding barrels to what we bottled last time, and we select the barrels based on how what's in the tank is tasting.
Mm-hmm.
And if we see that it's drifting one way or another, we'll find some barrels that we think will complement what's in the tank. Because when you're a really big distillery and you're dumping a lot of barrels, so the law of statistics helps you because the average kind of stays constant, or at least easier to manage. For us, we can have a few barrels that could really throw off the balance. So we try to keep the flavor balance consistent, and we do that with this, what I call forward blending technique, where we always leave a large amount of whiskey in the tank. So you noted the pre-prohibition style we put on the label there. We do that for a reason, because our mash bill is marries the kind of mash bills that you would have found 100 years ago or more, because we use a lot of malt.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of modern distilleries can buy enzymes, but in the old days couldn't buy enzymes. You needed enough enzymes in your malts to turn your mash, and rye can be notorious. So you need to having 20% malt in our mash bill really makes a big difference. And the malt we're using is 15% of it is a 2-row brewer's malt,
Mhm.
and the other 5% is rye malt. So
Oh,
we kind
wow.
of blend it together, and so that's that. And we emphasize that pre-prohibition style because of the high level of malt we're using.
So you're not using any corn at all.
No corn.
Okay, so just on the nose, and it is so and I hate to use this word, of course, it's so smooth on the nose. A lot of the ryes that you get, especially coming, and this is no disrespect to the other rye makers, it's almost too herbal in your mouth, like I mean in your nose. It just hits you with like potpourri, whereas this one is a little more subtle, and it gives you just a really nice baseline of some cinnamon and stuff like that. And on the taste, it's much the same. And I feel that 95 proof was a perfect proof for it, because it gives it just enough spice where the spice is coming through, but yet it's not hitting you on the head. I bet at cast strength this is a pretty hot one, isn't it?
Well, yeah. In fact, we've been we do a lot of cast strength whiskey locally, and
Mm-hmm.
actually we've done some store picks across the country as well. And those usually, because we go in the barrel at 120,
Mm-hmm.
at least most of our barrels. We're playing around with lower entry proofs too,
Right.
but most of them go in at 120. So the most recent single barrel, we had a local club pick up a single barrel this morning, and that was at 128.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they can pick up some, the proof will go up. We've had them as high as 134. That's the
Mm-hmm.
highest one so far.
Right.
Um, Most of them are 126, 124 in that range, going in at
Right.
120. Um, but
That's
we
awesome.
and what you're describing is I think has a lot to do with the malt
I think
because
so.
if you're doing if a lot of the MGP, well, the MGP rye is 95 grain,
Right.
and so you get it's in your face rye. Look, the guys at MGP have been making whiskey a long time. They know how to
Yeah.
make really good
They
whiskey.
know what they're doing.
I'm not disrespecting what they're doing. It's
Me
only the
neither.
style that's different.
Hmm.
Um, and so theirs is a little greener, a little more herbal,
Hmm.
grassier. So ours is a little more balanced between the grassy side and that malt fruitiness, which over time sort of rounds itself out into some really nice flavor. We think.
Right. Okay. So take us back to the beginning. Obviously, we want to talk about the name because it's an unusual name for a rye whiskey distillery. But also, let's get into your personal backstory and stuff like that. If as much as you want to divulge, obviously, is whiskey a passion project, or were you born into it? That's the kind of stuff we like to dive around into. So give us some of that while I sit here and nose this again.
Okay, so, well, I mean, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. I currently reside in Eastern PA, but I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. Literally, I could see the Monongahela River outside my window. My grandfather was a rye whiskey fan, drinking whiskey from the distillery that was located about 2 miles down the road from us, which at the time was the largest whiskey distillery in North America. It was the old Gibson distillery located in Gibsonton, which is now gone pretty much, but it's next to the town I grew up in called Monessen, which is right
Okay.
on
Okay.
the Monongahela River. And my grandfather was always a rye whiskey guy. He started a speakeasy in the 20s because he didn't like working in the mill, and it's turned into our family business, our family tavern, which was in business from 1933 until the late or the mid to late 70s, when the still mill closed, the bar closed because
Right.
the bar. My grandfather was a smart guy. He opened the bar 3 blocks away from the mill gate, so there was always people coming and going from the mill who were stopping in our tavern. So I grew up all around it, and so there was an article in the New York Times, and obviously by the late 80s, nobody was making whiskey in Pennsylvania
No.
anymore, and rye whiskey was becoming a very neglected category. There
Mhm.
wasn't that many people making rye whiskey. My grandfather, at the age of 95, in 1985, was the only option he had available to him was Old Overall.
Mm.
And when Old Overall was being made by Jim Beam, and frankly not being made in the highest quality category. So um, there was an article in the New York Times in 2006. You can still find it, when the Eric Asimov and a few guys got together and they rounded up as many rye whiskeys as they could find. And they said, hey, we're hearing those rumbles, the rye whiskey is going to make a comeback. So they tasted a bunch of whiskeys, and that caught my eye. And in fact, my wife, my wonderful wife, decided that she would seek out all these whiskeys. And for Christmas that year, I got all those whiskeys under the tree. So,
Oh,
which was pretty
wow.
cool.
That's awesome.
So that was the beginning. And so then I started chatting with friends of mine, my business partner, John Cooper, and some other friends saying, hey, wouldn't it be fun to bring whiskey back to Pennsylvania? It's the historical home of American whiskey. So at first it was kind of a joke. It was like, yeah, have another drink, whatever. And but then, I kept an eye on what was going on, and indeed, the rye whiskey market was starting to take off, albeit from a very small base, but
Right.
particularly compared to bourbon. So my brother said, hey, why don't you sit down and write a business plan? So I wrote a business plan and I showed it to a few people, and they start writing checks. And we were going to hire a guy to run the distillery, and he decided at the last minute he didn't want to do it because his girlfriend didn't want to move. So I had already ordered the equipment and raised the money, and so we needed somebody to actually run the distillery. So I raised my hand, and that was my that's where we got started operations in 2011.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we did our homework. I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd. I'm a chemical engineer by training and that kind of stuff. So we went to Michigan State University. Michigan State used to have a program called the Artisan Distillery Program,
Okay.
and it was designed to primarily help farmers in Michigan develop value-added products for their farm products. So we learned a lot there. And we translated a lot of what we learned there into what we're practicing today. So in terms of the recipe, we did a lot of research into the traditional Pennsylvania style, which for the most part was a sweet mash, no corn, lots of malt. So that's kind of where we went. The guys at Michigan State helped us pick out a really tasty malt that we're using, and that helps. We think that helps really provide a nice balance in our whiskey. So that's kind of where it all started. We were very fortunate that we were kind of first in the door at the state of Pennsylvania. State of Pennsylvania, if you don't know, is I think, if not the largest, one of the top 2 or 3 purchasers of spirits in North America.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're purchasing for the entire state.
Right.
600 stores. So yeah, so so they're a nice friend to have. A lot of people like to complain about the PLCB, but frankly, compared to what it was 30 years ago, the stores are well managed. The selection, sometimes people complain there's an auction for the limited availability.
Right.
Okay, but for the most part, I think they're doing a nice job, and we're very happy to have them as a customer. We're the straight rye you're tasting now, and our 90 proof classic, which is our younger whiskey, those are in hundreds of stores across Pennsylvania. So that's a very nice thing for us to have. So that's kind of where we got started. We started with the product we still sell today, which is our younger whiskey. I don't think I sent you a bottle of that.
That's the one I actually had.
Right.
And it was really good. Obviously, when I got it, I didn't do any research into it, whereas these I did a little bit more research. But you're saying that that's a younger spirit, is that correct? This one's 4 years old, so I'm guessing it's younger than that.
It is younger than that, and in fact, we get a lot of shade thrown in our direction because that whiskey is not even barely a year old.
Oh, really?
So it's very young, but one of the things that we emphasize is, the quality of the spirit going into the barrel. We don't neglect that at all. So it's the really high quality malt that we're using. The rye grain comes from a farm right down the road from where I live. It's the Meese family. The Meese family's been on that land since 1716.
Oh, wow.
They're great partners to have. They grow a really ripe rye berries for us, so that by mid-July is when they wait till it's a really high quality product for us to use. Michigan State guys tuned us into to the yeast that we're using.
Okay.
They had a microbiologist there who recommended the yeast that we're using. We do a very low and slow fermentation. We have a temperature control system that keeps the temperatures in a very tight window, so we don't get a lot of off flavors from
Right.
overheating.
Right.
We do a 5-day minimum, 5 to 7 day fermentation.
Okay.
Um, and so we're very careful about what goes into the barrel.
Right.
Um, one of the things that sells more than and it surprises me how much it sells, is our white rye. We sell white rye, most of it locally, but we have bartenders now up and down the East Coast using our white rye in cocktails.
Oh, really?
Um, there's a famous bar. There's several of them across the country. Death and Company in New
Okay.
York.
Yes.
There's currently one of our white rye. Our white rye is currently on their menu, one of their cocktails there.
That's
Um,
really cool.
it's very cool, and so we've had a couple of other very notable bars that have taken a liking to our white in cocktails, because right off the still, it's a pretty tasty product. I mean, it's fruity, it's complex, it's got a lot of really nice flavor, and we think that. And that was part of our goal, because we knew we were going to be starting with a younger whiskey,
Hmm.
and we stuck with the younger whiskey because, frankly, I enjoy that. I really enjoy
Right.
drinking it. It's not an 18-year-old scotch, so feel free to throw it on the rocks, because I drink it on the rocks all the time.
Absolutely.
Um, in fact, that's the whiskey that when it gets really hot in the distillery, I crush some ice and I make a whiskey snow cones out of it. So
That sounds good. That
it's
sounds
very good. Yeah,
good.
very good. So that, so our philosophy is we almost only do rye whiskey.
Okay.
We don't do any bourbon. We don't do gin. We don't do anything else. We've been dabbling in apple brandy.
Okay.
I mentioned to you earlier, before you started recording, that I'm going to a bonfire tonight at a local apple orchard, who also happens to make delicious, the Manoffs apples. They make delicious hard cider, and they approached me about making some brandy for them. They were making something called Pommeau, which is a blend of fresh cider and brandy that's
Oh,
popular.
okay.
It's a popular drink in France, so they
Okay.
offer that as well. And so we took a flyer and distilled some brandy for them with their
Hmm.
cider, and we liked it so much we've done more this year. So it's still a pretty limited product, but
Right.
I'm I'd like to keep going with it, because I think apple brandy is another very traditional American spirit.
Yep.
I think
Absolutely.
largely underappreciated.
Hmm.
But there's some really good distilleries across the country now making really delicious apple brandies,
Yes.
and I enjoy them very much. And so
Hmm.
so we're going to continue with that. But otherwise, we're strictly a rye whiskey is what we do.
That's really awesome. Yeah, I talked to my buddy Alan Bishop, who is the head distiller for Spirits of French Lick in Indiana, and they do an amazing apple brandy. It's a 4-year-old bottled and bond apple brandy. It is so good. And Indiana was one of the meccas of apple brandy. They were even shipping it to Calvados because they ran out of apple brandy. They were shipping it over there. So both rye and apple brandy have a huge history in America. Yeah, that to me is really cool. And then if you age the apple brandy, then maybe you can put some of your rye whiskey in the apple brandy barrels, and then
We're
then
we're,
you got more finishing options as well.
we're playing with that. We're playing with that as we speak. Yeah.
Right,
So, and
right,
we're doing a different. I haven't settled on my favorite, because we're just new at it. We haven't settled
right.
on my favorite uh, aging option for the brandy. We tried a new barrel.
Okay.
We're doing a new barrel, a used barrel,
Hmm.
and my next one I want to try some white wine barrels.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, the traditional. Well, um, we'll see. I mean, it's all going to depend on what we like the best. But so far, we've
Absolutely.
liked them all, which is we'll see, and so we'll see how some of these other ones turn out. But we really, I'm I don't know if it'll ever become a big product for us, but it's certainly a lot of fun,
Yes.
and we, and it's something that we could offer in addition at our distillery and to our local customers.
Right, right. And I'm sure you could come up with some cool cocktail or something with the apple brandy to really showcase the apple in there and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just a good tasting room thing. So I was looking on your website a couple of days ago, and I was you have a bunch of videos on there of a rosin rye, or I don't know, that might not be the right way to say it. Is that a rye that you are using in your rye whiskey, or are you using the Monongahela rye, or what type of rye exactly is it? I guess that's my
Rosin rye. Just to back up a little bit, rosin rye is a rye varietal that was introduced to the United States in 1909 at Michigan State. There was a student from Russia who was studying agriculture at Michigan State in 1909, and he noted that the rye that he knew back in Russia was better than the rye that they were growing at the time in North America. So he brought some over, and it was introduced through Michigan State and the USDA and became very widely used for many reasons. But of course, just pre and post prohibition whiskeys were very often using rosin rye.
Okay.
If you look at some of the advertising, if you there's a Pennsylvania rye whiskey that was a really great one, and it ended its life as a not so great blend, and that's the Shenley and Old Shenley.
Shenley.
And Shenley Rye has advertising in the 40s and 50s saying made with rosin rye. And even some of the old Michters made in Pennsylvania before they moved to Kentucky, they have something they would say made with rosin rye.
Awesome.
So having seen that, I went in search of rosin rye, and I went to the Pennsylvania State Department of Agriculture. They never heard of it. So I finally reached out to Michigan State, and they said, well, we really don't have any institutional knowledge of it anymore, but you could probably get some samples from the USDA in their seed bank, which is in the mountains somewhere out west.
Right.
And so I had seen an article by a professor at Penn State who was doing some work on rye, and I alerted him to the fact that he could, maybe get access to some of this stuff. And Glenn Roth is his name, and he started. And then we also started a program at Del Valle University, which is a local agricultural university here. So, and we started literally with 5 grams of seed that is now, there's now being planted by lots of acres of it. We've only made a relatively small amount so far because we wanted to continue putting seed back into the ground.
Absolutely.
So we have rosin rye in barrels now. The first one will likely come out sometime this year.
Okay.
It'll be a very limited release, Pennsylvania only for the time being. There are a few other distilleries in Pennsylvania now who have sourced the grain that was originally planted from Penn State, which is now being more widely grown across the state. So we're very enthusiastic. I'm very interested. I had some chemical analysis done on the white spirit off the still. And we didn't see any glaring differences, some very small differences in the analysis, but that kind of chemical analysis is difficult to do if you don't know what you're looking for.
Right.
And it's and it doesn't take a lot in terms of the amount of these other different flavor components to change the flavor profile. So the human nose and palate are quite sensitive, and sometimes more. I mean, I used to work in the flavor and fragrance industry, and they used to rely on people more than instruments for the final say on products. So
absolutely.
But the stuff I'm tasting in the barrel right now is pretty interesting. So we will continue to work on the program. The Nice family, who's our preferred farm, now have acres and acres of it. So we're excited that they're able to see some of the art. We're nowhere near big in terms of distilleries.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
But we do every time when we make a batch, we need 2,000 pounds of grain. So 2,000 pounds of grain, 500 pounds of malt, and so we've been preserving. And at 2,000 pounds of grain is roughly 1 acre. So we've been trying to put as much back into the ground as possible. And by next year, we will probably have enough to do nearly all of our production with just rosin rye.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And so another cool thing that y'all are doing, and this is kind of stepping back a second, but using your vatting tank, that's what I would call it, whatever you want to call it. It's almost like you're saying it's a Solero type system like they do in wine, to where you're basically it's just, it's mixing it all together, but you're getting the best of the best out of the bottom, which is really cool. And you're leaving some behind to where it can just all mellow together, and you're getting, like you say, a more cohesive profile on it. That's really cool. And so, do you think that once you start using the rose and rye, that like obviously you don't know the flavor compare? I mean, you might know there is a slight difference, but like once it's aged for for like if you're going to do a straight rye, for 4 years, once it's aged for 4 years, I guess you don't even know the dynamic of that as of right now. Is that correct?
Not yet. We haven't decided what to do with that yet. That may end up being a completely different product.
Okay.
We would have to. We have another storage tank sitting ready and ready to welcome the rose and rye. So, but we'll make that call. Me and John has a great palate. We'll be tasting through those barrels. Like we have a couple of barrels that are just about ready now.
Okay.
And we're still waiting a little bit. We're not quite satisfied that they're as far along as
Right.
we'd like. But so we'll start releasing it as we see it, and then we'll make that decision if we're going to blend it in with our straight or keep it as a separate product.
Right.
We haven't decided that yet.
That's awesome. Okay, so you were talking about the size of your stuff. So kind of go through your process. Is you're using pot stills? Are you column still? What the size of your tanks? We like to get real super nerdy over here. So you said you have a proprietary yeast that you guys are using. Give us a little bit of the process details, I guess.
Well, we have a pot still with I guess what is referred to now as a pot hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pot still with a side column
Right.
that we could use as we choose.
Okay.
So we do a double distillation.
Mm-hmm.
So the first distillation, the stripping run, is a pot still as an alembic. So it's straight from the pot to the condenser, no column. Okay. So now on the second distillation, we use the column. It's a 6-plate column.
Okay.
And we deploy that column, carefully. We don't want to strip all the flavor out.
Right.
But we also are able to do one of the things that I think is been helpful for us is that having that column between using the plates carefully and how much and the amount of water going to the condenser and so forth,
mm-hmm.
we're able to manage very carefully the cuts that we get off the still. So particularly the first cut on between the heads and the hearts, we're able to make that a very clean cut. So even in our young whiskey, you're not going to get that sort of tainted solvent side to it because we get a really tight cut off that first between the heads and the hearts. Awesome. So that's why we get away with that young whiskey not having that kind of solvent taint to it that mm-hmm. you might expect. So we deploy the column as needed, and that enables us to do, as I said, manage those cuts off the still to our liking.
Right. Awesome. And guys,
we have our still is, I'm sorry, our still is 500 gallons, 2,000 liters still roughly, mm-hmm. and we do 1,200 gallon fermentations at a time.
Okay.
So we feed a still twice every batch, and then we finish it together, and the finishing runs come off at anywhere between somewhere in the 140 range, sometimes lower than that, if depending on how it's running. And we'll and when again the column still guys talk in different terms.
Absolutely.
they have a takeoff proof which mm-hmm. doesn't vary once they get going. Ours is we start high and end low.
Right.
So ours all depends on when we want to cut it off.
Right.
And so we cut it off at a much lower proof than what ends up in the tank. And then we lower the proof. Right now, for the most part, we're lowering it to, we have been doing 120. Mm-hmm. We've been playing with lower than that and doing some side-by-sides. We did a special run for you probably know if you're perusing the internet, the mm-hmm. Michael Veach, mm-hmm. He wrote a blog about 2 years ago or 3 years ago now where he was imagining what his ideal rye whiskey would be. So I saw that, so I sent him an email saying, okay, we're going to do it. Okay, so we followed his prescription as best we could,
Mhm.
and he prescribed 108 into the barrel.
Okay.
So we went into these barrels at 108, and those are all rose and rye barrels, by the way. So
Okay.
we did rose and rye because he wanted an heirloom grain.
Mhm.
Rose and rye, we followed all the other prescriptions, and we also were able to. There's a really nice barrel company called the Great West Virginia Barrel Company.
Mhm.
There's a relatively new cooperage up in West Virginia, and he prescribed a very high toast, low char barrel.
That's
And
it.
so we were able to get them to do that. And we were able to prescribe Pennsylvania oak, even though they're in West Virginia. So it's
Oh, wow.
Pennsylvania oak with a Michael Veach prescription on how to make it. So I'm very curious to see how that comes out. It should be fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was going to say I didn't want to interrupt you. For those watching the video, I'm writing down a bunch of notes because, as you guys well know, I get a little off track sometimes. So if you see me writing stuff down, that's what I'm doing. So what I did while I was listening is I went ahead and that straight rye was amazing. I can't wait to dip into that a little more. And if you don't mind, I'm going to do a full review on my channel of your guys' whiskey. Now, granted, I know it doesn't suck because I've already drank it, but I'm going to give an honest review, which is going to be obviously amazing. But I just opened up the Dad's Hat. Well, obviously, the rye whiskey finished in port wine barrels, which those of you who know me know that I love a good finished whiskey, which I know that for whiskey snobs or whatever, they want it straight as it is. But there's something about a finishing barrel that makes the whiskey I'm not going to say better because it doesn't make it just changes it a little bit.
It's different,
And
sure.
yeah, it makes you could do a side by side and you could pick out different notes out of it. So I've been letting that sit for a little while, and I'm really interested to get into that. But again, I didn't want to cut you off on anything.
No, it's a good segue. We started doing John, my business partner John Cooper is a really big Scotch fan.
Okay.
So and of course, sherry casks and port casks
Yeah.
are very common, right?
Mhm.
So we were when we had more time available when we first started, it would not be uncommon for the Friday afternoon. We would mix up a couple of Manhattans and light up a cigar and sit outside the distillery on the front of the front entrance there, watching the trucks come in and out of the loading dock out there,
Mhm.
and enjoy a Manhattan on a Friday
Okay.
afternoon. And so we were talking about finished whiskeys, and it just so happened that week someone gave me a bottle of vermouth from a winery in California, Quaddy Wineries, who makes a vermouth called Via Vermouth.
Okay.
And we were very pleasantly surprised. It's delicious. I mean, Via Vermouth, if you've never tried it, is a fantastic vermouth. And for me, it's the best, or not, or definitely one of the best vermouths made in North America for sure.
Got it.
So while we were chatting about doing a port barrel finish, the idea of doing a vermouth barrel finish popped into our heads.
Okay.
So we contacted them, and we've been doing since 2014. We've been making a vermouth barrel finish whiskey is to start with.
Right.
It turns out that Quaddy also makes a port style wine that they call Starboard because they can't call it port.
Right.
So it's a port style wine, and that's the port style that we're using for our port barrel finish. So both of those are barrels we got from California.
That's awesome. And do you know if it's American oak or French oak? They're
French oak.
French oak.
French oak.
Because you can kind of smell it. Now it says on here that this is the younger rye whiskey. Is that correct?
Yeah, that we haven't changed that label in a while. That
Okay.
it's actually a blend of the younger, and you have to claim the youngest whiskey. So
Absolutely.
the youngest whiskey now, I think that one still says 6 months probably.
It does. Yeah.
So it does. Yeah, we have to change that because we're up to like now 9 months or older for the
Okay.
young whiskey,
Okay.
and we blend it with some of the older whiskey, and we do that as just a function of what we think tastes good.
Absolutely.
Because we have a very scientific method at Dad's Hat. If John and I like it, we bottle it. That's basically the scientific method. So So
Oh,
that's as far as
that's
it goes.
well, and that's what people don't understand. Well, maybe they do. Whiskey, yes, it needs to be aged. I mean, it doesn't have to. I mean, your white rye is doing seems to be doing very well, but whiskey needs to be in a barrel for a certain amount of time. If you want to call it straight or bottled and bond or whatever, and we'll get into your bottled and bond as well. But like the thing is, the whiskey's ready when it's ready. And if it's ready at 8 months, if it's ready at 9 months, who cares? Yeah, I mean there is certain guidelines with straight and stuff like that, but it's still a good whiskey. And why not produce it like this to me? And I haven't even had a sip of it yet. The smell on it is very similar, even though it's a little has some more raisin notes and stuff like that from the port. It's very similar to the other one that's aged 4 years old. So it's like, age is obviously a number, and it's a thing, and it's not like you're talking like a Scotch where 18 years is a thing. But I don't know. I think people put way too much into the whole age part of it. If it's good whiskey, it's good whiskey, no matter the age. That's how I feel, at least.
Look, our 90 proof classic, we call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a young whiskey. It's a very different product that we don't claim to be able to do in 9 months to a year. And we use some smaller barrels too,
Mm-hmm.
that you can do in 4 years. It's a different product. I mean, there's not a lot of barrel on it. It's very malty. It's very grassy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very fruity from the malt, and not as much barrel. The
Right.
barrel, what we found is that in the younger whiskeys tend to have the caramel side to it,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't get that deeper vanilla side.
Right.
And because the vanilla takes more time to come out of the wood, but you
Right.
get that caramelized sugar right off the bat,
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of provides that base of the caramel. And then but we're not pretending that it's not, and it's a young whiskey, and it is what it is.
Right.
I mean, we're not making any excuses for it.
Right.
And that's why Baskin Robbins makes 31 flavors. It's like, not everybody likes everything. So,
Right.
but right now, that's still a very big seller for us.
Right.
And we're, we see the straight coming up because the straight is a delicious whiskey too.
Absolutely.
But we have a lot of people who, particularly for like kind of old school cocktails, just even like highballs and things like that.
Right.
That 90 proof classic works really well.
Right. Right. I mean,
So-
and that's what's really cool about what you guys are doing. You're like, we have a little bit of an offering for everybody. If you want it white, here it is white. Here's young, here's older. Get into the bottled and bond. Because I hate to say I'm a bottled and bond chaser, but like if I see a offering from 1792 or whatever, and they have their bottled and bond, I'll pick it up just because I like to try different things at that same age and kind of do a side by side of this is what it tastes like at 4 years. And then of course some bottled and bonds aren't 4 years old. They have to be a minimum, but still you can get the Henry McKenna 10-year-old bottled and bond. But anyway, to kind of walk us through the bottled and bond and that process.
What was the third product I sent you? I sent you three, I think, right?
Maple. The maple cask.
Oh, Maple. I didn't send you the bottle. I didn't send you the bottle and bond. I'm sorry
It's
about
okay.
that.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. We'll have to get together again real soon. And
we have a new bottle and bond coming out very soon, and we have I'm not sure how the big guys do it. In fact, I need to research more of that. But our philosophy, as I mentioned before, is that for our standard products, the 95 straight, the 90 classic, the 94 vermouth finish, and the 94 port finish, our aim is to be consistent. Always improving, but consistent. But what we do with the bottled and bond, that enables us to have some fun. Where what we do is, as we're tasting through barrels, if we find some that are a little bit off of the center point, we'll say, okay, let's put those aside, and we're going to put those together later and do something that tastes different than our 95 straight.
Right.
Because if it tastes the same as our 95 straight, what's the point, right? So,
right.
So since 2018, we've been doing an annual bottle and bond release. They've mostly been 5 years old. This year is going to be 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so starting in 2009, the 2018 was a pretty small offering. 2019 was where we started more widely available. That was whiskey distilled in 2014. And it was crazy spicy because we were still getting some of our rye from a farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And like jalapeno pepper spicy, that stuff. And so we put it in these beautiful barrels we got from McGinnis, our supplier, a barrel supplier in Missouri. And they were all 3-year air dried barrels, really wonderful barrels. And we let it sit, and after 5 years, that jalapeno became like cherry red pepper. It was just wonderful, sweet
Okay.
cherry
Okay.
peppers.
Okay.
So if you can find a bottle of our 2019 release, it's worth it. We sold it all. And when John and I looked at each other and go, shit, we didn't keep any for ourselves, you know? So
Oh no. Oh
so
no.
yeah, I know. I was at a store in New Jersey. It was a smaller bottle shop, and they had one sitting on the shelf. So I grabbed it and bought it back for myself. So I
It's
finally
pretty bad you have to buy
I have
your own product.
we were stupid. We kept shipping it out, and we didn't keep any for ourselves. So.
I mean, you're thinking about the bottom line. You're not thinking maybe we need to have a couple of these back, but I totally get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, we just shipped it out. So over time, the 2020, we decided to back off. We picked something that was very, let's say, floral, very pretty. 2020, that was 2021 was cherries and chocolate, that we called it our Black Forest cake whiskey. 2022, which we still have a few left at the distillery. We call that a walk through my grandmother's apple orchard.
Ooh.
It's like those, if you've ever been at the end of the season, the apple orchard, when the apples are on the ground and they're sort of like kind of pungent, and it had sort of that really ripe apple and with the rye cinnamon, the whole thing. That was the 2022. 2023 we skipped because we didn't find enough barrels we felt were distinctive enough to separate them out.
Okay.
So, but 2024, we're in the midst of tasting right now.
Okay.
That'll be all 6-year-old whiskey. So it's from the first quarter it's distilled in the first quarter of 2018.
Okay.
And right now, I have to go back and revisit it. I have a sample in the other room. That's gonna be my project for tonight. It's kind of reminding me of like Scottish shortbread, you know, like kind of buttery, toasty. That's what I'm getting so far. So we're trying to find something unique and giving it an interesting descriptor.
Right.
So it was, so we have a couple we haven't finished adding barrels to it. We have some other candidates, so that can change. But right now, I'm getting shortbread, but we'll see.
Wow.
So every year, so we try to make the bottle and bond different, because if it's the same as what we always do, what's the fun of that, right?
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome that you're trying to make a different offering, because as we well know, each barrel has its own characteristics, and some are really on profile, some go way over here by 20% or so, and some are a little off and like weird. So you got to kind of just play with it, and like you say, skipping a year for y'all when you could just release something and sell the whiskey for some money instead of sitting on it and paying. I'm sure you have to pay taxes on it every year. Is that correct, that it sits in the warehouse?
No. As long as it stays in bond, we don't have to pay taxes on it yet.
Oh, okay. See, it's different. It's different. Okay, so
because it's bottled. Remember, it's bottled in bond, right? So it's still in bond, which means taxes have not yet been applied.
Got it. Okay, so you don't worry. You can let it sit for as long as you want, I guess. It's just taking up warehouse space. It's just taking up space. So let's talk a little bit about your space, like what your barrel warehouse. You had said something about using smaller barrels. Are you using all smaller barrels, or are you using 53s plus some smaller ones?
It's a combination of 15s and 53s. All of the whiskey in our straight whiskey is 53.
Okay.
We don't want to put our whiskey in a small barrel for any more than 9 months to a year, because the barrel starts to take over. So we use those. We still use the 15s, but we're more and more getting to 53s.
Okay.
We have the 15s, which spend their entire lives in the downstairs in the distillery space.
Okay.
We have another space on the in the building. We're in an old textile mill.
Okay.
So it's a huge old building. And we have a space up on the 5th floor that is it's one of the first efforts in the late 19th century for reinforced concrete. So there's these massively thick walls. So that as is the Pennsylvania tradition.
Right.
It's a relatively constant temperature environment.
Okay.
So it doesn't get that cold in the winter, it doesn't get super hot in the summer, but it stays even without even trying, it stays a very comfortable mid-70s in that room all the time.
Awesome.
So that's where we take the 53s up there, and we don't look at them, we don't touch them for at least 4 years.
Is that
So that's where
hard
the 53s.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Is that hard to do? Like not messing with them for 4 years? Like, don't you want to go in there and take a little sample off of them or something?
Well, the ones that are, I'd say our standard mash bill and so forth, there's, we don't really see the point. Plus, that's a lot of drinking to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But we segregate the barrels where we've using the rosin grain, or where we've changed the barrel entry proof, or where we've changed cooperage. Almost all of our barrels come from McGinnis in Cuba, Missouri. They are a wonderful cooperage. They make wonderful barrels, and we're very, very happy with working with them. But we do dabble. We stray a little bit. We've tried the West Virginia guys. We like their barrels, so we have some of those on test. We're testing those to see how they come out. We've tried a few other places that we're not saying we don't like them, or
Right.
well, they're not yielding the results that we're looking for. I mean, it's
Right.
the flavor is different than what we would want.
Absolutely.
We also and those are the two principal places we've tried others, but McGinnis is really our go-to. They're great people. They make great barrels, and we're really pleased with working with them. And they've been, I mean, true blue for we've been working with them now for over 11 years.
Oh, wow.
And their barrels are outstanding.
Yeah.
They sell a lot of their barrels to other bigger distilleries as well. But we've always been pleased that we've started with them, and they've always been very supportive, and we have a great working relationship with them. And they make, like I said, they make fantastic. Most importantly, they taste great. I mean, that's our. We don't care what your barrels look like. We want them to taste good.
Right. And have you noticed any sort of because this is something we talk about a lot, is with this bourbon boom that has happened in the last 5 to 8 years. Have you noticed any sort of, and I know if you have contract with a cooperage, then you have contract with a cooperage, but have you noticed any, like, oh, we can't get you 20 barrels, we can only get you 8? Have you noticed any of that in your wheelings and dealings with them?
I think not so much for us, because again, we've had a relationship with them for such a long time.
Right.
And frankly speaking, compared to their big customers, we're small potatoes, Right. So getting us what we need is not as difficult as getting some of their big guys what they need. And when they've had issues, they've worked with us. They're
Right.
they are stand-up folks. I mean, they call us and say, "Look, we have an issue. Let's work through this, and we'll figure out a way to work through it." They've been, I mean, I have nothing but great things to say about McGinnis. I mean, they're stand-up people. They don't try to hide anything. If they have an issue, they come to us right away. We work through it, and we've had a couple of times when things were a little tight. Actually, I think one of the issues they had during COVID was that they didn't have enough people to do everything they needed sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was part of the issue.
Right.
But other than that, I mean, nothing but great things to say about McGinnis. They're great partners. They're super nice people. They're honest. They're right down the middle. They don't bullshit us. They tell us what's going on. We tell them what's going on, and we work together very well.
Absolutely. And that's what you want. Like when you're, I mean, at the end of the day, running a distillery is just like any other business. You have to have business partners that when you work, because you obviously you're not going to have a cooperage on site and all that, where there's some people that do that and good for them, but you're not going to be malting your own grain on site and all, and, you know, having combines and stuff. So you have to work with people. And if you have a good working relationship with the people that you have to source from, it makes your life so much easier, and also it shows in the product because you're able to get a good product, like you're getting the best grains, the best barrels, all of that stuff, and it shows in the whiskey. Being that this is a younger, what we would call a younger whiskey, it has an amazing nose and palate on it. I'm still on the port finish, obviously, but
Oh yeah, you're back on the port. I'm sorry,
I'm,
I kind of left you there for a minute.
no, it's all right. I mean,
Yeah, the port is
I'm still nursing it. Yeah,
no,
yeah,
the
but
port is a fun whiskey. John, that's a great cigar whiskey if you're so
I bet.
inclined. Um, it's and again, one of our philosophy with our finished whiskeys, whether they be the vermouth barrel or port barrel, even the one I sent you with the maple,
Hmm.
is we want it to be whiskey first, finish second. So it's not going to knock you over with the port side. We do that. In fact, one of the things we do, we as I mentioned before, we have these storage tanks where we keep the whiskey. We never empty them out, and importantly for the port and vermouth, sometimes the barrels we use are so soaked and so the whiskey that comes out is all for us for our taste has too much of a port influence or too
Okay.
much of a vermouth influence. So we'll fill those barrels a second time and blend those things together
Okay.
so that we don't want to overwhelm you with the port. We want you to smell and go, oh yeah, it's there,
Yeah.
but it's the whiskey first and the port second.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I'm getting. Like you're getting and I'm going to say this, you're getting the creaminess of the rye. It's almost like a rye bread, but like not as spicy. It's not spicy like a rye bread would be. But then that pork comes in and it gives it like a little almost like a raisin jam over the top of it. It's really exceptional. Yeah, I can't wait to sit down with that. I don't smoke, so but you know what, sitting on the front porch with this would taste pretty good too. So
That's a good way to enjoy it. I do an occasional cigar. John's more of a cigar guy than I am, but we have a lot of guys in our area who are part of with these whiskey cigar clubs,
Mhm.
and they enjoy it quite a bit. Um, we have a if any of you folks who are listening in or find yourself in the East Coast, in addition to the distillery, we have one of our tasting room locations in a little town called Bristol and on the river in on the Delaware River, and we have their flight tastings, of course, but also we have the cocktails that we have there. The using our whiskeys are fantastic, and believe it or not, we have one of our cocktails there made with our port finish, which is it's called Sunday Fun Day, and it's phenomenal. It's really complex. It's a beautiful
I,
cocktail.
I might
So if
have
you
to
ever
get
find
that.
yourself
I might have to get that recipe
if you
from
need a
you.
recipe, I can turn you on to that. I know a guy. Don't worry, I know a
Okay,
guy.
okay, cool. Yeah. So also you said you were, and I know this is just your area only, but I'm sure you're excited to announce it. And you know, I have viewers from all over, people in New Zealand, stuff like that are listening. Tell us a little bit about your new RTD that's coming out or has
Oh
came out.
yeah. We've had some at the distillery. Well, we initially just before COVID, I think I mentioned we're allowed to set up tasting rooms in other locations than our distillery, and we were very close to signing a contract to lease a space in the center of Philadelphia, right near the train station, in the concourse below the two huge Comcast um, office buildings. And what we were planning to do there is to be able to have a space where you could come have a cocktail. And then we were doing little 100 milliliter cocktails to go that you could grab with you and get on the train. So from that, we developed a ready to, a pre-made or pre-mixed cocktail base that, it overwhelms everyone in our tasting room where you can have any one of several different cocktails. Our old fashions just absolutely are, just kick ass. They're just so good.
I bet.
And we're they're made with, whiskey, actual bitters, not just flavorings, but actual bitters. And one of the things we do is we get these big net bags, and we put these wonderful dried cherries and orange peel, and we just let them soak in there for a couple days. So you get a combination of the wonderful flavor of the fruit, into the cocktail, without getting it too sweet. But in addition, and this is my own pet theory, is that the alcohol is extracting some of the pectin from the cherries,
Yes.
because the mouthfeel on these cocktails is amazing. I mean, it's just this wonderful, unctuous,
Yeah, I bet.
viscous kind of mouthfeel to it that really enhances the whole experience. And again, I might not be able to get the focus right here, but
It's all right.
can you see that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's our 375 milliliter bottle, which will be, we're obviously kicking it off in the state of Pennsylvania. We're bottling that tomorrow. So
Oh wow.
I have I have like 1,000 liters of old fashioned sitting in a tank waiting for bottling tomorrow morning.
That's
So
awesome.
it's the biggest old fashioned I've ever seen. So um,
That's
that's
really
our
cool.
launch quantity with the state of Pennsylvania, and that'll be available in a couple of weeks, but the time it takes us to get in the bottle and shipped out to them.
Yeah.
If you live in Pennsylvania, it's also available. One of the other things we're allowed to do in Pennsylvania is that we have an online store which you can go to. If you live in Pennsylvania, we can ship you anything we make
Oh wow.
in Pennsylvania. So the 375s are available online, and we're selling them for what I think is a very reasonable $19.95
Oh, I feel like that
for a
is.
375 milliliter cocktail. So
That's awesome.
pretty
And
delicious.
I saw on there it was what, 83 proof? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, so
80
you're
83 proof.
not getting a sub-proof cocktail either, because a lot of these RTDs are running at 20% alcohol, like, so you're getting a pretty good amount
No,
of alcohol in there as well.
this is identical. We took a cocktail that we made in the tasting room on the bar,
Yeah.
and we scaled it up. I mean, we literally just scaled up. We bought we made a simple syrup. We made a super simple syrup from exactly the amount of simple syrup we would use, and we literally just scaled it all up. So
Right.
the
Absolutely.
bitters, and we use a combination. We're not allowed to put it on the label.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure what we're allowed to say or not, but we
Yeah.
were told by the very large aromatic bitter company we're not allowed to use their name.
Right.
But we also we throw in some Peychaud bitters in there as well,
Oh yeah. I
because
love
I
Peychaud.
think when I make I make an old fashioned at home, which I might do as soon as we get through here. I, I use Peychaud bitters.
Yeah. So
I
do
think Peychaud bitters and our 90 proof classic whiskey absolutely sings together. It's just something about it. It's a really wonderful combination. So, and John prefers the other bitters, also excellent bitters. So we do a combination of the two, and that's it. I mean, that and a little bit of fruit, nothing else, no artificial flavors, no nothing.
Awesome.
That
Love
is
to hear
it. So it's a really, I mean, people at our tasting room go crazy about it. I mean, it outsells everything else like 10 to 1.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so if you don't mind, and I know he's not here to defend himself, but talk about John for a little bit. What he brings to the thing. Are you still, as of this point, are you still head distiller, doing all the stuff, and he's just the silent partner, blender, helper?
Oh no, John's John's more of the blender than the distiller.
Okay.
He's very actively. He's got a great palate, and he's got a broader. I mean, I'm kind of a one-trick pony. I'm a rye whiskey guy. He has a very broad palate with Scotch and everything. So he brings a lot to the table from a tasting point of view, and helping on the blending side. On the distilling side, I'm still pretty much hands-on, except I now have a full-time distiller working with me,
Awesome.
Travis Scott, who's a super guy. I recruited him out of college. Actually, he's got a chemical engineering degree and a master's degree from Drexel University. Is a and he that plus he loves whiskey, so he's a really good guy to have around.
Yep.
Um, and he's a little younger than I am, so humping up and down the ladders and stuff like that is a little easier for him than me. So he's a great guy to have around. But John's role, I've known John literally since we met in college in 1976, so that's a long
Okay.
time ago. Um, and he's a good friend and smart guy and a guy who's loved whiskey for a long time and brings a lot of let's say a broader perspective to the table when we're doing our blends and things like that. He like I said, he's got a good Scotch background. He knows Scotch very well, and so he brings that to the table. I'm more of a like I said, I'm more of a straight on rye guy. I have memories of my grandpap and my dad drinking old Pennsylvania labels like Sam Thompson and these old school because
That
we
is
served
old
those in the
school.
bar.
Yeah.
And I'm not that. I mean, look, I'm old enough to remember when I was an 18, 19-year-old. They were still selling Sam Thompson in Pennsylvania, so we were serving it
Wow.
at the bar.
Wow.
And so I remember those, and that's kind of what's in my mind's eye when I think about what I'm looking for in our whiskey. So, and I'm
And
fortunate enough that once in a while, and I didn't bring it home with me. I should have brought it with me because it would have been fun to share. I have in my desk at the distillery what is left of a pint of whiskey that was distilled in 1917 at the distillery that was in my hometown.
wow.
So when that whiskey was distilled in 1917, my grandfather was working in the wire mill 2 miles down the river. So um, that someone found it. Is an old college friend of mine found it when they were cleaning out somebody's apartment, and they gave it to us. And so we take little tiny sips of that once in a while.
Absolutely.
It's from the old Gibson distillery in Gibsonton, right on the Monongahela River. And so
That
that, that's
that
kind of my touchstone,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And so you take the tiniest of sip because you want to keep as much as you can in there. I totally understand that.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So
Awesome.
I'm very fortunate that we have a great relationship also with something that, again, depending on where your folks are listening and what your travel plans are, but there's a place in Western Pennsylvania called West Overton.
Hmm.
West Overton is where Old Overholt started in 1810. Okay. So Old Overholt is an old Pennsylvania brand. And so now it's a museum. So, and there's a lot of energy going into building up their displays there and so forth. So it's a very cool place to visit. And so speaking of Old Overholt, if you haven't noticed so far, what's interesting is that after Jim Beam bought Old Overholt, they moved it to Kentucky
Hmm.
and they changed the recipe and they start using corn and so forth.
Hmm.
But now they're bringing out something called A Overholt.
Yes.
And even on the regular Old Overholt, if you look closely at the label, they got the picture of Abraham Overholtzer in the
Hmm.
middle. One side, now it says born in Pennsylvania, made in Kentucky. So they're now trying to reestablish their roots, their Pennsylvania roots, which
Yes.
is cool as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
And what's even more interesting is that they just launched this new product called A Overholt. And they've gone back to the old mash bill. So they're now practicing the same mash bill as we are, which is 80% grain and 20% malt and no corn.
That's
So
crazy.
we're very happy that Jim Beam is going to spend a lot of energy educating people about the wonderful history of Pennsylvania whiskey and the wonderful flavor to be had by using a mash bill that's that traditional style.
Hmm.
So keep your eye out for A Overholt.
Absolutely.
Um, And for those of you in Texas, by the way, we had been in Texas. We took a beating during COVID because I used to be able to come down and visit and visit customers, but we are now on a really happy, once in a while order that you'll see us at Goody Goody maybe sometimes, places like that. But it's hard to get us in Texas right now.
It is. It is. I just happened to come across a bottle one time looking through an old dusty shop. And I can tell you guys right now, and this is not just because Herman's online with us right now, but this is probably some of the best rye whiskey I've had. And that's not throwing anything his way, but at the same time, like if you just need an easy sipping rye that's not going to knock your head off like a 95.5, but it still has enough rye character there to give you that rye flavor. This is the way to go. Tell us a little bit about your distribution. Are you on Steelbach or anything like that to where somebody could get something?
We are. Steelbach does carry our stuff. In fact, Steelbach has a rare. We had a distributor in Kentucky find a few cases of our 2019, I think it is.
Okay.
Ball and Bond, which Steelbach has a few cases of it.
Okay.
We sent it over to them because the Kentucky distributor didn't want to handle it anymore. So, but so Steelbach does handle it on from there. We're in about 20 states. Then COVID was brutal for us because we just couldn't get out and support our distribution, and a lot of our smaller distributors were acquired during COVID.
Yeah.
So we became a very small fish in a very big pond in a few places. But we're in on the West Coast. There's a company called Pacific Edge. Pacific Edge is our distributor in California, Washington, Nevada, Arizona, and soon to be Colorado. So if you go to your local and tell them call Pacific Edge, that can get our products into your local favorite. We're in the Midwest. We're in Chicago. We're in Illinois with a company called BC Merchants, a small distributor in Chicago. If you go to our website, most of these are listed, although we have to update it because we made some changes. We are with we're just changing distributors in Delaware, Maryland, and DC. That'll be announced soon. We're with Fedway and Vine Street in New Jersey. We're with a small outfit up in New York who are really great guys, PM Spirits. PM Spirits, this is kind of fun, and I wish I had a bottle with me. We did a special barrel pick with them.
Okay.
It's going to be available from the PM Spirits distribution. It's our first and only 7-year-old barrel launch. And it's a phenomenal whiskey. They tasted it and said, we sat on it for about 9 months and monitored it, and they decided that they wanted to pick it as a special barrel. So that's being launched in New York.
Wow.
And we're in Kentucky with in Tennessee we're with Crown, and in Kentucky we're with I'm gonna get in trouble now. I forgot the name.
It's okay. It's all good.
If you go on our website, you'll see who we're with.
Okay, so
and if you guys don't have it, look for the distributor. Tell your local to call the distributor and get it in. So.
Absolutely. And one of the things I'm going to do just for the listeners of this show is I'm going to give away a 4-ounce sample of your choosing of the 3 samples that Herman gave me. You can choose from the port cast, the straight, the 4-year-old straight, or the maple finish, which we didn't get into. Hey, I'm trying to do this. I'm not trying to get toasted on the podcast, so I can't literally drink through all of them. Go ahead. Sorry.
But by the way, the maple, we do a maple finish that is it's very subtle maple. Okay, what we do, and it's a bit labor intensive, but it seems to yield a really good result. Is we take barrels that have had whiskey in them. We take the whiskey out. We put maple syrup in. We take the maple syrup out after 4 months or so. We sell that locally, which is fantastic.
I'm sure.
And then we put aged whiskey back in again.
Okay.
And let it sit there for another 5 or 6 months. So it just gets a little kiss of maple without being overwhelming.
Awesome.
So if you're afraid, if you're afraid of it being too much maple, it's very, like You know it's there, but it's not
Mhm.
like snapping you in the face.
Right, right. And so what I'm going to do to one of the listeners, and you just have to, comment down below. I will give you a 4-ounce sample of any one of your choosing of the three. That's how much I want to promote these guys' brand, because as you can tell from our conversation, these guys are doing some really cool stuff that they need to get in more markets. And I mean, not that I want you guys to expand and the next thing you get bought out by Diageo like all the rest of them, but I don't want that. But at the same time, I want you guys to have more distribution, because I feel that more people need to have your product, because when people think of rye, they have a different connotation of what this rye is. To me personally, this rye to me is a daily sipper rye, which I couldn't probably say that before. So yeah, make sure you comment down below, and yeah, we'll get on that. So
That's great.
before
I appreciate that.
no problem. Before we go, and I don't know if you're the social media person or not, but go ahead and give us your socials, your website. Obviously, I'm sure it's all Dad's Hat, but and obviously, if
social
they're
media, we're at DadsHat Rye.
okay.
So we're on Instagram. We're still on Twitter, X, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We started on Threads, even though that's a bit tentative, but
Yeah.
Instagram and Facebook, it's DadsHat Rye, DadsHatRye. You'll find us on those two, and so we're happy to interact with you guys. And if you have any questions, happy to send them our way. If you go on our website and you go to the contact page, if you see the info@dadshatrye.com, truth be told, that comes to me. So I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to that. So all those emails come right to me.
And I will tell you, he's very quick to respond, and he's very responsive, and he always gets back from what I have seen. So, Herman, I thank you so much for doing this and taking the time to hang out with me. This has been a ride. It's been really fun. You've opened my eyes to rye whiskey, not only rye whiskey, but Pennsylvania rye whiskey. I'm loving that no corn in there. That to me just gives it a whole nother profile. It doesn't taste like bourbon. It's not bourbon, like that's my thing. It's not these barely legal ryes that everybody's putting out. It is a rye whiskey for rye whiskey drinkers. And that's why I'm going to support you guys till the end, or until the bottle runs out. No, I'm joking. But I really appreciate you for being on here. And guys, make sure that obviously if you're listening or watching this, you're following what I'm doing. Make sure you go over to Patreon if you want some exclusive behind the scenes stuff. But Herman, I really appreciate you being on here. And any last words before we get off?
No, just again, thank you for inviting me. Like I said, look, we're proud of what we do. I'm very happy to talk about it, and we enjoy sharing what we do with people who enjoy what we do.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And stick on 1 second. I want to talk to you after, but until next time, guys, you know what to do. Keep your spirits up. All right, welcome back. Okay, today we're doing something usual, but unusual. If you've been following my channel for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you know that I'm not your typical whiskey person. Sorry, I'm not. I love to think outside the box. I love craft. I love all of the things around that. And today is no exception to that. Yeah, it is what it is, bro. I can't change who I am, right? It is what it is. Okay. We're dipping into something pretty cool. I have the bottles on the floor for some reason. I should have had them up and ready to see. Today we are dipping in, and you've seen this in another video already, but now we're doing the actual review of the whiskey. I can't ever get it right. Dad's Hat Pennsylvania Straight Rye Whiskey. This is aged 4 years in Pennsylvania, obviously. It is 47.5% alcohol, or 95 proof. Here's the deal with Dad's Hat. And I recently did a podcast with them, and it is coming out very soon, schedule permitting. It's recorded. I just got to get it out, guys. I got a lot of stuff. I got a lot of works in the book. A lot of works in the book. I got a lot of irons in the fire. I just keep having analogies. I'm sorry. I just keep having analogies. But this is a twofer. I'm going to give you guys a twofer. You ready? So we're also going to talk about Dad's Hat. Get straight. Come on. Dad's Hat. Rye whiskey finished in port wine barrels. Everybody knows I love a good port wine, right? This one is interesting. It's 47%, 94 proof. But this one is interesting. This was aged a minimum of 6 months. 6 months in new Chardo. So it makes it's not a straight rye. It's just a rye. But it was finished for 3 months. So it's a 9-month-old whiskey. It was finished for 3 months in port wine barrels that they get from a local winery. Super cool. So let's talk about Dad's Hat for a second. If you don't know Dad's Hat, they are a Pennsylvania distillery, a small Pennsylvania distillery that is making traditional rye whiskey. I've asked them multiple times, do you make anything else? And I just want to let you know, I have both samples right here. I'm letting them air out a little bit. So just, I poured them right before I hit record. So they've been 5 to 6 minutes. Anyway, we're going to let them air out for a second. Okay, here's the deal. They're, like I said, they're a smaller craft distillery focusing on rye, but they're focusing on a specific aspect of rye, Pennsylvania rye. Now, Pennsylvania used to be the mecca of rye whiskey. That's where it came from. They are using a mash bill of 80% rye. They change ryes every once in a while. They do 15% malted 2-row barley and 5% malted rye. So the one thing I did not put in there, which a lot of the other rye whiskey producers have, is corn. This has 0 corn in it, which makes it very different. Also, smaller still setups, but they are doing some really amazing things with their whiskey. Okay. All those things being said, the podcast will be out soon. It was a banger. It was really fun. So in this glass, your drinking buddy glass, I have their straight 4-year-old rye whiskey. And it is unlike any rye that you or I have ever had. And the podcast will come out very soon. And in that podcast, I'm giving away a sample. Go listen and comment, and you can be in the run for a sample of your choosing between the port and this one. He also sent me a maple cask finished. I haven't opened it yet. I got a lot of stuff. Like I said, I got a lot of stuff going on. I haven't opened it yet. This one is super. It's unlike normal rye. It's not as herbal. It's very fruity, almost fruity to the nose. The proof doesn't hit you hard. This one is aged 4 years, so it does have some age on it. The color's really light though, but let's see. Let's have a little taste. Oh man. So it hits you right about the mid palate. It's like, think of your tongue as it's a obtuse. I don't know if it's obtuse or oblong. It's oblong, I guess. In the middle of it, you have taste buds and there's different spots in your tongue where you taste things. It hits you right that middle of the tongue with I'm going to say spice because it's lack of a better word. But it's not like a baking spice. It's more like cardamom, which that could be a baking spice, right? But it's like almost a 5-spice type cinnamon, but not cinnamon.
It's not like apple pie spice at all. It's not like that. It's more of an herbal, like almost thyme or even rosemary spice, which I know rosemary is not spicy, but like that type of vibe. Like you ever made like a dish where you had you burned rosemary, or there's even cocktails out there where they torch a rosemary over old fashioned or whatever. Yeah, that's I'm getting that savory. It's not rosemary. Okay, I don't want you to think it tastes like rosemary. It's not rosemary, but it's like that. It's a herbal, but not your normal herbal. There is a little bit of the eucalyptus Pier 1 imports taste, which I have to say comes from just rye, period, that I get. That's a tasting note I get. And then on the nose, it goes back to, it's like a cherry, vanilla, Dr. Pepper. You know, Dr. Pepper has like a lot of different flavors going on, 23 different flavors. Ascorbic acid is one of the biggest ones, but which is a black mold, if you didn't know. Anyway, not ascorbic, citric. Sorry, not ascorbic. Ascorbic acid is just what it is. Citric acid is made from black mold. Whatever. That's fine. It's super light, super refreshing almost. I cannot wait to put this into a cocktail. Old fashioned. That's really the only cocktail. I do like a whiskey sour. I like a what's the other one? I forgot what it's called. Where you do the egg white, right? I do love those. Get some Peychaud's bitters. Amazing. I forgot what it's called. It'll be right here. That is super nice. Super nice. Okay. Weird tasting note that just came through. I'm gonna let it go because it's there. Do you ever have really good salsa? You go to a Mexican food restaurant and they have really great salsa. It's that saltiness, a little bit of saltiness, and then that really fresh tomato. And like the onions dialed back a little bit where it's not like really pungent in your face. And the cilantro is really cohesive with everything. That's what it tastes like. It doesn't taste like freaking salsa, obviously. I know that. But it's that fresh, super fresh. Man, it's so good. Thank you. Thank you, Herman. Herman, head distiller, obviously. I got to go back for more of that. That was awesome. I always do that. I always put way too much water in my mouth when I'm trying to cleanse my palate. It's just a thing I do. You do what you want. It's your life. So now on to B. B is the port finished, right? So, but here's the caveat to this one. This one is 9 months old. And I asked Herman about that. I was like, so why 9 months? Why didn't you let it go for 2 years to where you could call it a straight rye whiskey, right? He goes, well, we did. And this was better. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, I haven't tried the 2 year, obviously. He goes, we can get enough extraction from the oak in 6 months to where it gives us the vanillas, the caramels, the things we want out of it. I want to maintain that rye taste because the new make itself is amazing. This is his words. The new make itself is amazing. He has bars that look for the new make, that buy his new make to make cocktails with. Just the new make. So sitting on oak for 6 months and then 3 months in port, so 9 months. If he can turn around and make an excellent product, which we're going to dip into, why not? Why would you age it longer to get less results? And that's what a lot of people, I'm setting it down because you know what's fixing to happen. No, that's what a lot of people don't understand. Yes, an age statement is great. Straight rye whiskey is a cool thing. But if you can make a great product at 9 months, why are you wasting your time? If it degrades in its taste, the longer you let it sit, why are you going to have the barrel warehouse space? Why are you going to do all the things when you can make a great product? Now, I told Herman when I got the bottles from him, and I said I'm going to give a honest review of these, and I feel like I have with the first one. It's amazing. I'm not going to lie. It's an amazing whiskey, and I can't wait for you to try it. They are on Sealbach. They're on a couple of other places. Please look for them. They're doing some amazing things with rye whiskey. If you're into rye, some people aren't into rye. Like some people aren't into smoky scotches. It's all good. I like them. All right, let's dip into this one. This one is a little bit lower in proof. By like what? 1 point? 1 point lower? Whatever. Oh man, it's super nice on the nose. A lot of raisin, plum, dark cherry. But then you get the herbaceousness, the herbal coming through, the cardamom, like I was talking about, the Chinese 5-spice, thyme, rosemary, those herbs. Like you put something on a steak that not garlic, with no garlic, but like when you make a herbed butter and you put it on a steak, not the steak smell or anything like that, just that herb butter smell. It's very, I'm going to say this word, and I know people don't like this word. It's very unctuous. You ever had an unctuous, it's very unctuous. Bennett, do what you got to do. Let's have a taste. Wow. Okay. It's a ride. It's a short ride, but it's a ride. Right at the bat, you get that almost, and this is just me, I'm telling the truth, 100. You get that almost craft, but like new make. If you've ever tried new make whiskey, like whiskey that's just off the still and then they package it. It's not their moonshine or whatever, but it's their new make that they would put in a barrel. It has that vibe, but it's rye. So like it's very rye centric, but a different type of, it's very hard to explain. It hits you right in the front palate. It's very grainy, very rye grain. It tastes like rye grain. But then it immediately hits you with some vanilla, some caramel. That's from the barrel, obviously. A lot of vanilla. Vanilla frosting almost. Like it's sweet, super sweet. And then the port takes over. So it's like 1, 2, 3. You know, it has these 3 levels on it. Level 3 is the raisin, the dark plum, the viscousness of it, the unctuousness, I would say, for a 9-month-old whiskey. Think about that. It's this side, isn't it? It's that side. Yeah. See how my hair starts flipping out? It is what it is. I'm just happy it's growing. You know, like they told me it could be a year before it grew. So, you know, I'm happy to get this much. Oh man. So on the nose again, after the retronasally, obviously, it is almost cotton candy, right? It's almost cotton candy sweetness. Like either a grape cotton candy or like dark blackberry, which I don't know if they make blackberry cotton candy, but it smells super sweet. It's obviously not been sweetened, but port, fortified, whatever, you know. This is riveting YouTube, isn't it? It's like, you know, just watching me smell whiskey. It has something to it that is unlike any other whiskey, rye whiskey or other. It has it's not strange. Oh, I need to taste it again. Sorry, I make dumb faces when I drink sometimes. Black pepper. Yeah. It has a black pepper hit in it that I really enjoy. I love a heavily crusted black pepper, like steak or something like that. Oh man, it's so good. It is so good. But then like it's like black pepper with grape Kool-Aid on top of it or something. Like, it's so good. It is so good and I mean, I'm not saying for a 9-month-old whiskey. I'm saying for a whiskey that they decided to put in a bottle when they did. I haven't tried the other one that they mocked up, but if you just gave that to me not knowing it's 9 months old, I would think it's at least 3, 4. It is short on its lifespan, on its tasting lifespan. Like right now, is all I can taste is that little bit of lingering vanilla and possibly some raisin. That's it. It's kind of just going away. It's probably a 15-second ride. That's a pretty good ride. Most of y'all can't last that long, so whatever. To me, I know. I'm sorry. I love you guys anyway. But to me, it is so good. I've really been trying to get into rye whiskey lately. Trying to open up my palate to it. Open up my palate to a lot of things, actually. Just kind of getting out there and doing the thing. But rye is really speaking to me. The Devil's River Rye I did recently, that one was super good. Like, I don't know. I guess rye's just calling to me, and it's not even Friday yet. So, okay, I'm gonna chop this off. This was a major success, and please, when the podcast comes out, I'm not gonna give away sample because I'm already giving away sample. That sort of thing. It will come out on YouTube as well, so I will wait a couple of weeks after it comes out, and you can sign up. If you watch, well, we'll worry about that on the video, but give me like a hashtag DadsHat or something like that on it. That way I know you want in on the giveaway. I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but if I didn't, that's don't do it in this one. Do it in the later one. It's going to be a couple weeks though. This I'm going to turn and burn this one, but it's going to be a couple of weeks on the DadsHat. I just have a lot of interviews that I've done, podcasts that I've done that I need to get out first. Not that it wasn't a great freaking interview. I want to get it out as soon as possible. I might jump it up a little bit, but I got a lot of guys. I got a lot of guys online. So anyway, love you guys. Thank you for all the support. Thank you to my sponsors, Bad Motivated Barrels and Z Smith Whiskey and Mixology. And if you would like to support me monetarily, be behind the scenes exclusives, I just did a podcast just for them. It was super cool. We talked about how Amberana tastes like cat pee. It was awesome. If you want to in on that, patreon.com/whiskey/shaman. The Whiskey Shaman. The Rye Whiskey got me there for a second. If you want in on any of that, it is a monetary investment, but at the same time, it helps out the channel and you get special perks for it. And they're always growing, changing. I'm trying to do as much as I can for my patrons. I love them, and they keep this afloat because as of right now, I don't make no money doing this, and it's a lot of work, and you got to buy bottles. You got to do all the things. So, yeah, until next time, y'all be good. Be safe out there. Drink responsibly. Drink water. Drink a lot of water. When you're drinking whiskey, you need to be drinking water. I'm sorry. I'm not your personal trainer. I'm not telling you what to do, but I am a whiskey steward, and I want you guys to treat it respectfully. And if you're not, and if you're having problems with that, please contact somebody. Contact me. I'll find the right sources for you to get you help. And that's from the heart. I'm serious. Treat the whiskey with respect. And until next time, keep your spirits up.